Wes from Avatar Off-Road this morning. We are installing the side ladder for a Sprinter. This particular one is the 144, so it has a slight bend at the bottom. We also make one for the 170 that's slightly different and doesn't have to have the wheel well, if you will, bend in the bottom. This ladder will fit an NCV3 starting in 2007 all the way through the current VS30s of 2024. All right, some of the tools we're going to be using today. Mostly I'm going to be using my 3/8 impact. We've got some 3/8 bolts, some 5/16 bolts. We've got our special tool for mounting the plus nuts in the bottom of the van. We've got our two brackets. There's an upper bracket and the lower bracket. And we will show you how this all goes together. All right, we'll take the longer of the two brackets, which is our top bracket, and we'll orient it in such a way that it contours down to the van. So this would be wrong, this would be correct. So we'll orient the ladder in that way. Get that held in place. I'll put the two top bolts in. Then we'll just buzz these in. All right, so now I'll take the bottom bracket and we'll orient it with this extra bend here is actually going to go underneath the van and up against the weld seam on the van. So we'll mount this in this orientation. We'll take our 3/8 16 bolts and run those in. We can run these down. We don't need to tighten this exactly because we might want to have some room to play with a little bit. There, it is slotted, so we can move it a little bit. And now we're ready to mount this onto the top of the van, and then we'll orientate where these holes are and get those holes drilled. And today we're working on a Jayco Launch, which my understanding is very similar or the same thing as the Winnebago Revel, and it comes with this factory roof rack. The brackets that they use on these, they just happen to put it right in the way of the side ladder. But it's a simple loosening 4 bolts or 4 nuts, and we can just slide this back a little bit and get it out of the way. 2 down here and then 2 right here. All right, so I'm going to start out by just loosening these. It's a 10mm wrench actually that I need to just loosen this off the track. So we'll loosen the 2 track nuts. And then the upper track nuts is a 13mm. So we'll loosen those 2 up. And then we can just slide that bracket back a couple inches and tighten it back up. All right, so we're going to start out with our T-bolts and some 5/16 nuts, and we'll mount those into the track. So these T-bolts just drop down into the track, like so, and then as they turn, they will lock themselves in. The top of the bracket has slots, so I can go ahead and start my nuts on here, and then I'll get my helper to assist me in handing me the ladder so I can get these get the top of the ladder put into place. So now we will slide these in. And just tighten these up a little bit. We're not really wanting to tighten everything up just yet, but we'll get these snug. You kind of got to pay attention that the T-bolt is twisting in the track and seating itself correctly. So you just kind of got to maybe look down through the track and make sure that this T-bolt is actually twisting, because it has to, the T-bolt itself has to twist slightly. When you tighten the nut, it forces the bolt to turn a little bit, so it should be perfect. So we'll just get this just finger tight so that we can still move this around a little bit, and then we'll go down and check the bottom. Now we're going to actually loosen that bottom bracket back up a little bit so that it'll actually slide underneath the van. You can see that it's actually slightly higher than the bottom of the van there. So that's the kind of the compression that we'll get once we get these things all tightened up. So I'm gonna start out by loosening these bottom bolts back up. We just snugged them a little bit earlier. And then that'll slide up underneath there. So we're gonna wanna run this thing all the way so that this back of this bracket hits the weld seam. That's the position. And then one other note. So I wanna make sure this bottom bolt here is forward of that seam. You'll end up pulling it over slightly so that that bottom bolt doesn't hit that seam. When the ladder's positioned correctly, this seam, body seam, will be just hidden by the front leg of the ladder. All right, so this is actually going to be a pilot hole. So I'm going to put the bracket in position, and I'm going to use this drill bit, the pilot hole. There's actually 2 layers of the body here, so you want to go through both layers. So you don't interfere with your plus nut when you stick your plus nut up in there. So now we'll just pull this out of the way. Now we've got our 31/64 drill bit that we supplied with your ladder kit. I'm gonna make sure my safety glasses are up, and we'll finish drilling out these holes. All right, now we're ready to insert our plus nuts. So I'll take the plus nut and our little tool that we supplied. We'll stick the bolt through the tool and into the plus nut. And then you'll run this down to where it's finger tight, right? And now we'll insert this up into the hole. And I would definitely wear a glove on your left hand and hold on to this tool. And then we'll take our impact and we'll set the plus nut. Then we'll grab our second plus nut and again do the same thing. All right. And you can move the ladder into position, put the bolts into place. All right, now that we've got our holes drilled, our plus nuts inserted, we'll just go ahead and finish tightening these up. I'll tighten the body ones up first. Tighten both these up. We will change out to our 9/16 and finish tightening this up. We won't actually finish tightening this yet. So we'll get this snug, and then we'll check the alignment of the top of the ladder and make sure that it's vertical with the van. Now we'll make sure the ladder is straight, and we're gonna actually look at this body line to make sure it's vertically aligned with the ladder. Sometimes you might have your friend stand over off the edge and kind of eyeball it. I can kind of look right down the edge and see that it's lined up. And then once that's lined up, then we'll finish tightening these upper T-bolts. We'll take our 13mm wrench and just finish tightening this up. All right, now that you've got these two secure, we'll go down to the bottom and finish tightening up the bottom 2 bolts on the ladder, and then we're finished enough. And we're set.